For most people, the fantasy football season is over as we head into the wild card round of the playoffs. But if you're here, I assume you're a lot like me and just can't help yourself. Whether you joined a league specifically for the playoffs or you're looking to enter some DFS contests, I'm here to help. I'm Jorden Hill, and we'll be diving into RotoBaller's consensus half PPR rankings for Saturday and Sunday's games. We'll get right into it, but first, please be sure to leave a like on the video and drop a comment down below with any start-sit dilemmas you're facing. We'll kick things off at the quarterback position with number 7, Joe Flacco. The 38-year-old will make his first postseason start since 2014 and faces a familiar foe in the Houston Texans. Just a few weeks ago, Flacco threw for 368 yards and 3 touchdowns against Houston in what many will remember as the Amari Cooper game. Flacco did throw 2 picks in the contest as well, but it didn't really diminish his fantasy output. The Texans' defense has been strong against the run, but vulnerable to the pass all season, so Flacco is definitely in play and should be a popular pick in DFS for Saturday's slate. The Rams were effectively counted out before the season even began, but they got healthy and started playing extremely well over the last 2 months of the campaign. And out of all places that they could be playing in the wildcard round, they'll be in Detroit as quarterback Matthew Stafford faces off against his former team. Of course, there's a storyline here for Jared Goff as well, but this will be Stafford's first game in Detroit since becoming a Ram, and it is a perfect matchup for him. We still have confidence in Kyren Williams, but the Lions have been the most dominant run defense in the NFL while surrendering the 3rd most fantasy points to quarterbacks. This should be a really fun game with a lot of points scored, so Stafford is an exciting player to start on Sunday night. It's been tough sledding for the Eagles recently, as they've dropped 5 of their last 6 games, and included in this span are losses to the Cardinals and Giants. Nonetheless, we have Jalen Hurts up at number 3, as he'll look to bounce back against the Buccaneers. Staying with the theme of good run defenses, bad pass defenses, Tampa Bay gives up the 4th most yards through the air, but the 5th fewest yards on the ground. It's worth noting that Hurts is battling through a finger injury, but he'll be out there on Monday night. A.J. Brown's knee is one to monitor, but things look good for Devonta Smith to return, and the potential for Hurts to score on a tush-push is always there, so he remains a top fantasy option. Let's move over to running backs and start with number 10, Najee Harris. It was a slow start to the season for Najee, but the former first-round pick has been averaging over 100 yards per game since Mason Rudolph took over as the starting quarterback. Rudolph will be getting the nod again on Sunday, but Harris might not find quite as much success against the Bills. Buffalo ranks as a middle-of-the-pack run defense this year, but it hasn't let up a rushing performance of over 65 yards since Week 13. It isn't the best matchup for him, but if the Steelers want any shot at winning this game, they'll probably have to try and control the tempo by feeding Harris. As a Steelers fan myself, I don't think would fare too well getting in a shootout with Josh Allen. Coming in at number 7, we have Aaron Jones. Jones has a pretty tough matchup on tap against the Cowboys, who have allowed the 10th fewest fantasy points this season to running backs. But since returning from injury, Jones has looked really good, with at least 111 rushing yards in each of his past 3 contests, and 2 of these have come against top 10 run defenses. A.J. Dillon is still not practicing, so Green Bay may be forced to solely rely on Jones in the backfield once again. Even if Dallas gets out to an early lead, we know Jones is a threat as a receiver as well, so his role on the field should be pretty secure. In the same matchup, on the other side of the ball, we have number 5, Tony Pollard. Considering his ADP coming into the season, Pollard had a down year, but he still eclipsed 1,000 rushing yards and tallied 55 receptions. The Packers' defense is one he should be able to capitalize on, as Green Bay finished as a bottom 5 run defense in the regular season. Add in the fact that the point total for this game is projected right around 50, so Pollard should have a good shot at hitting pay dirt. Last week, C.J. Stroud got the Texans into the playoffs for the first time since 2019, and his number 1 target, Nico Collins, was a big help. Collins went off for a career high of 195 receiving yards while catching all 9 of his targets and finding the end zone. Following this type of performance, you might expect to see Collins a little bit higher, but this is a really difficult matchup for him. The Browns give up the 4th fewest fantasy points to receivers and held Collins to 4 receptions for 18 yards back in Week 16. He did score, and this was with Case Keenum at quarterback, but Cleveland has been limiting wide receiver 1s all year. He should still see plenty of volume, but don't expect the same results from Collins that you got last week. Our number 9 receiver, Rashee Rice, has been a pleasant surprise in what's been an otherwise pretty awful season for the Kansas City receiving corps. The rookie quickly established himself as Patrick Mahomes' go-to wideout, averaging nearly 9 targets per game since the Chiefs' Week 10 bye. Rice scored against the Dolphins earlier this season, but only saw 2 opportunities and wasn't being featured in the offense like he is now. Miami's defense is pretty banged up at the moment, but keep an eye on the weather conditions in Kansas City, as it is expected to be incredibly cold and things could get ugly if there is significant wind. Up at number 2, we have, coincidentally, the wide receiver 2 on the season in Tyreek Hill. Hill struggled against his former team back in Week 9 in their showdown in Germany, but will look to get revenge in his first appearance at Arrowhead Stadium since joining the Dolphins. The cold weather could have an even more substantial impact on the Miami-based squad, but the Dolphins simply have to manufacture touches for Tyreek. Jalen Waddle and Raheem Mostert are both questionable, and Hill is practically guaranteed to get double-digit looks regardless, so he offers one of the safest floors of any player this weekend. It was unfortunate to see star rookie Sam Laporta go down last week, and now the Lions will have to rely on our number 11 tight end, Brock Wright. Wright has just 13 receptions on the season, but at least he gets an enticing matchup this week against the Rams. LA has surrendered the 3rd most fantasy points to tight ends this season, and while it's unlikely that Wright is featured on Sunday night, he's worth considering as a dart throw in DFS lineups. Up one spot, we'll kick off our top 10 with Cade Otton. Otton has flashed at times this season, but only managed 455 yards and 4 touchdowns in total. Philly has been far worse against receivers than tight ends, but at the end of the day, Tampa should be able to throw on the Eagles. Although Baker Mayfield is dealing with a few injuries, he's fully expected to suit up, so you can take a shot on Otton as someone who should see a few targets and offers some touchdown upside. And finally, at number 6 we have Dalton Kincaid. Kincaid closed out the regular season with some positive momentum, going for over 80 receiving yards in both weeks 17 and 18. The Steelers were stout against tight ends to open the season, but they've been destroyed over the past 8 weeks, in which they've allowed the most fantasy points to the position. Tight end options are obviously limited this week, so Kincaid is a good start, but keep an eye on the weather conditions in Buffalo as well, as this game could be played in gusting winds and snow showers. Hope you guys enjoyed. Please remember to subscribe to RotoBaller for more fantasy content throughout the NFL playoffs that'll help you win big in 2024. Thanks so much for tuning in, and best of luck on Wild Card Weekend.